Good morning. I am Chi Elder, Chair of the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau Advisory Committee. I'm calling this meeting to order at 10:01 a.m. This meeting is being held on September 14, 2022 via WebEx teleconference and webcast pursuant to Government Code Section 11133. This meeting is being held by teleconference with no physical locations. I would like to ask our WebEx moderator to please explain the format of this meeting.
Certainly, we will be asking for public comment at appropriate occasions. When I do that, you may make a public comment either by raising your hand, by clicking on the hand icon at the bottom of the WebEx screen, or behind the three-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. And then if you'd like to type in the ask field, comment, and click send, we will take people's comments in the order they were submitted. We will give a 2-minute time limit and a 30-second warning for each comment. And we ask that comments be limited to the topic at hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2 of the agenda. At this time, I would like to ask Angela to call roll to establish a quorum.
Good morning. As I say your name, if you could tell me that you're present. Chi Elder.
Present.
Bertha Sanchez Hayden.
Present.
Wendy Hatch.
Present.
Elizabeth Ichikawa is not present. James Moore.
Present.
Denise Nellison is not present. With 4 members present, we do have a quorum established. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Item number 3 of the agenda. I would like to ask the committee members and Bureau staff to introduce themselves. I am Chi Elder, Chair of the Advisory Committee. This is my second term, and I am appointed as a public member on behalf of the Senate Rules Committee. And I'm based in San Diego. As I call your name, please introduce yourself. Bertha Sanchez Hayden.
Good morning. I'm Bertha Sanchez Hayden, Vice Chair of the Advisory Committee, appointed as part of the government nonprofit sector, and I am based in Los Angeles, California.
Thank you. James Moore.
Good morning. I'm James Moore. I am a professional fiduciary and I operate out of Sacramento, California.
Thank you. Rebecca May.
Hi, I think we might have missed Wendy. This is Rebecca May. I'm the Bureau Chief for the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't. Just a minute.
Would you like me to speak up? This is Wendy Hatch.
Yes, please. Thank you, Wendy. Sorry about
Wendy
that.
Hatch, no worries. Wendy Hatch, Advisory Committee member, a professional fiduciary, and my office is based in Long Beach.
Thank you. And back to Rebecca.
Hi, again, I'm Rebecca May. I'm the Bureau Chief of the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau. Thank you.
Thank you. Helen Joffrey.
Good morning. I am Bureau Counsel Helen Joffrey, located here in Sacramento.
Great, thank you. And Angela Quadra.
Hi, I'm Angela Quadra, the Program Analyst for the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau.
Thank you. Item number 4 of the agenda. Please allow me to briefly address this agenda item. California law prohibits advisory committee members from discussing or taking action on any matter not on the agenda. However, this item offers an opportunity to the public to comment on items that are not listed on today's agenda. Please be aware that public comment during this agenda item should provide information to the advisory committee members and is not meant to be a discussion between the advisory committee and the public. Though this may seem at times like advisory committee members or Bureau staff are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensuring the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed. Before the committee asked for public comments, I asked individuals making comments to not discuss pending complaints, pending licensing applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may come before the Bureau's legal counsel. Such discussions considered ex parte communications by potentially providing information to the Bureau's legal counsel outside of the administrative record in a case. The committee strongly asks that you also respect the privacy of others by not revealing the names, other personal information, or conditions of any individual involved in any case or complaint. The advisory committee can receive comments regarding the Bureau's processes in general, but it cannot receive comments on specific cases. If you want the committee to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you may request that that item be considered for a future meeting agenda. However, a request does not obligate the Bureau to fulfill that request. If your comment is related to an item on today's agenda, please wait until we get to that agenda item. Comments at this time are only for items not on the agenda. To allow the committee sufficient time to conduct its full schedule of business, public comments will be limited to 2 minutes apiece. Please do not duplicate or repeat the comments of a previous speaker. I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
Thank you. And I do see committee member Wendy Hatch has raised her hand. Did you want to take a moment to recognize Wendy?
This is Wendy Hatch. I believe Denise, committee member, has been able to join us, so maybe we should add her to the roll and quorum.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Great, thank you, Denise. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, this is Denise Nelson, and I am a former social worker specializing in the area of aging, and I live in San Diego.
Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, we've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment on items not on today's agenda. If you'd like to make a comment, you can click on the icon of a question mark in a square, typically at the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. And in the Ask field, type comment and click Send to all panelists. We will recognize people in the order requested. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning. Another option is to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon next to your name. And I do not see any requests for public comment at this time. Shall we close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you, moderator.
You're welcome.
Item number 5 of the agenda. Rebecca, would you please read the Bureau's mission statement?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. To protect consumers through licensing, education, and enforcement of the Professional Fiduciaries Act by promoting and upholding competency and ethical standards across the profession.
Thank you. Any comment from the committee members? I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
Thank you. And we are open for, we've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If anyone has a comment on the mission statement, you may raise your hand by clicking the hand icon or click on the Q&A question mark inside a box icon, type the word comment and click send. And I see no requests for public comment at this time. Shall we close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, moderator, and thank you, Rebecca. Item number 6 of the agenda. Are there any suggested edits to the March 9th, 2022 meeting minutes by the committee members?
This is Wendy Hatch. I just have a question on item number 10 under Bureau Updates, bullet point number 2, outreach events. It states that Ms. May attended the Sacramento Fast virtual outreach event with Mr. Moore. on January 1st, 2022. I believe that was New Year's Day. So could we recheck that date? That the FAST team might have had a different January date. Jim or Rebecca, do you have a comment on that?
I definitely don't remember being there on New Year's Day, so thank you for that catch. It was like maybe the 9th or 12th or somewhere in early January, but we'll correct that date. Thank you.
This is Jim Moore. It was actually on the 12th of January.
This is Wendy Hatch again. I make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected to state January 12th, 2022.
Thank you, Wendy. Is there a second to the motion?
This is Denise Nullison. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Denise. Any discussion from the committee members? I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
Thank you. We are opening up the Q&A for WebEx as a means of making public comment on the minutes and the motion that has been made to approve the minutes. If you have a comment on the minutes, you may click on the Q&A, which is the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. Type the word comment and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon next to your name. I'll give people a moment to locate the features. And I see no request for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you, moderator.
You're welcome.
Angela, would you please repeat the motion provided, followed by a roll call vote?
Yes. So a yes vote will be to approve the minutes with the amendment changing the outreach date from January 1 of 2022 to January 12th of 2022. And I will call each of your names. Chi Elder,
Yes.
Bertha Sanchez Hayden,
Yes.
Wendy Hatch,
Yes.
Elizabeth Ichikawa is still not present. James Moore
Yes.
and Denise Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you. With 5 votes, the minutes will be amended and posted with that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Item number 7 of the agenda. I would like to invite Greg Pruden to present an update on behalf of the Department of Consumer Affairs Executive Office.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. My name is Gregory Pruden. I'm a legislative manager with the Division of Legislative Affairs. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to provide the Department of Consumer Affairs update today. Open Meeting Act legislation. The governor signed Senate Bill 189 on June 30th, 2022, which reinstitutes through July 1st of 2023 the remote meeting provisions of the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act that were in place during the pandemic. The changes took effect immediately upon signing. Please be aware that DCA wants you to have the right meeting for the business of the board or bureau while still taking into consideration both costs and public participation. We are asking boards to still track the costs for meetings, even those where there isn't travel, and to also use WebEx as much as possible to allow the public to attend remotely, especially as COVID-19 numbers rise. The department is also asking boards to complete the public meetings survey to assist in tracking these costs for your board meetings in order to be able to compare costs for in-person and WebEx meetings since the legislative change is only in place for this fiscal year. We have distributed the surveys to all boards and bureaus and ask that they be completed within 30 days after each meeting held. Should you have any questions, please reach out to the department. in-person meeting guidelines, and COVID-19 safety measures. Though legislation has passed allowing remote meetings, we are reminding boards that choose to hold in-person meetings of the safety measures, best practices, and recommendations for holding public meetings. When planning for upcoming meetings, please remember, all board bureau members and staff are expected to follow the state and local public health guidelines that apply in the area where meetings are held. Face coverings are strongly recommended for all board members and staff at meetings. The California Department of Public Health strongly recommends that individuals continue to mask in indoor settings. Please post face covering guidance signage at your meeting check-in or entrance. Vaccination and testing. Prior to meeting in person or at a remote location, members need to submit vaccination verification to the Department's Office of Human Resources or be subject to COVID-19 testing. The Enlightened Licensing Project. We are pleased to announce the inaugural report of the Enlightened Licensing Project, which is now available and was distributed to all boards and bureaus on Friday, May 13th. This innovative and collaborative project was started to streamline and enhance licensing processes by utilizing the knowledge and expertise of subject matter experts within department boards and bureaus. This project was conducted in partnership with the Board of Registered Nursing. After a thorough assessment of some of the board's licensing processes, the project's co-chairs provided recommendations to introduce new ideas and implement best practices for critical licensing activities. The department held a brown bag event on June 1st to review these recommendations with all boards and bureaus, as we hope that other boards and bureaus can learn from this report and implement recommendations where applicable. We believe it is so important to learn from each other and to share our knowledge. We will be turning to enforcement next, and we will be reviewing the enforcement process at a board through this enlightenment process, utilizing enforcement subject matter experts from existing boards and bureaus. Regulations brown bag. The department also recently held a brown bag meeting with executive officers and bureau chiefs on July 5th, 2022, to roll out changes to the department's regulation development and approval process. These changes were also discussed and approved by the department's executive officer and bureau chief cabinet. The department shared the documentation on the process and changes with all boards and bureaus. Social media brown bag. On August 10th, the department held a brown bag meeting on the topic of social media. The presentation included an overview of social media best practices, content examples, security, and more. A copy of the presentation was provided to the participants. If you have any questions or requests related to social media, please contact the department's Deputy Director of Communication, Monica Vargas. Department Workforce and Succession Plan. DCA takes a proactive and strategic approach to the recruitment and training of its skilled and diverse workforce. To achieve this approach, the department is updating its annual workforce and succession plan. As part of this process, the department recently requested that board and bureau leaders complete a workforce survey. Responses will be used with other information about the department's workforce to inform decisions that align and support our new strategic plan. Further, this process facilitates meeting CalHR's requirement that all state organizations with civil service employees maintain current workforce and succession plans. New department staff. The department is pleased to announce that Nicole Lay was hired on June 24th as the Deputy Director of DCA's Office of Administrative Services, or OAS. With more than 20 years of state service experience, Nicole has dedicated 10 of those years to DCA. Most recently, she served as Acting Deputy Director of OAS, where she was responsible for overseeing the business functions of the Human Resources, Fiscal Operations, and Business Services offices. Prior to this role, Nicole was Chief of the DCA Office of Human Resources. She also previously served at the Contractor State License Board and the Department of Motor Vehicles. We are very excited to have her as part of the department's executive leadership team. Additionally, Olivia Trejo has been appointed as DCA's Chief of the Office of Human Resources, effective August 1st. Olivia has over 22 years of human resources experience in state government, and the last 9 years have been with the department's Office of Human Resources. She began her career in 2000 at the Department of Insurance, then moved to the Department of Real Estate, and most recently served as the DCA Assistant Human Resources Chief for the past 5 years. Taylor Schick was also appointed the department's Chief Fiscal Officer in July. Taylor has more than 16 years of state service experience, all with the department. Taylor began his career in 2006 as a budget analyst and most recently as the DCA budget officer. As the department's new Chief Fiscal Officer, Taylor will lead the dedicated accounting and budget teams. Finally, the governor recently appointed a new Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations, Melissa Gear. She will be joining the department in early October and brings a wealth of experience. She previously served as the Chief Deputy Legislative Director at the Department of Insurance since 2014. She has also served at the California State Teachers Retirement System, California Attorney General's Office, and the Legislative Analyst's Office. She earned a Master of Public Health and Administration degree from New York University. We look forward to her joining the department and assisting all of our boards and bureaus. As always, the department is here to help, and if there is anything we can do to assist, please reach out. Thank you for your time today.
Any comment from the committee members? I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
Thank you. We've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If anyone has any comment on the DCA presentation, you may look for the Q&A icon, the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, or behind the 3-dot other options if you are on a mobile device. Or if you are a call-in user, you may hit *3 to raise your hand. And anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon next to their name. We will allow each person 2 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning. And I see no requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Thank you, moderator. And thank you, Gregory. Item number 8. Oh, sorry. Item number 8 of the agenda. I would like to invite Harmony D. Filippo from the Department of Consumer Affairs Budget Office to present the budget update.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair Chief Elder. My name is Harmony D. Filippo, and I'm the budget analyst with DCA. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present today. I will provide the committee with an update on the budget, and I will be speaking to agenda item 8A and 8B. I would like to start with a quick overview. And if you could please switch to 8B, I'm going to start with 8B first. Thank you. So I'd like to start with a quick overview of the fiscal year 21-22 FM12 expenditure projections. So this report includes the 21-22 budgeted and projected expenditures. For 21-22, the Bureau is projected to spend approximately $579,000, of which $394,000 is expended on personnel services costs and $185,000 on operating expenses and equipment, your OE&E. Next, I will review the fund condition, which is item 8A. So the attached fund condition statement is based on the 21-22 Budget Act and has been updated with fiscal month 12 projections. This also includes 2020-21 prior year actual revenue and expenditures, as well as out years, giving you a 5-year view. I will start with the first section, which is revenues. So the Bureau began 2020-21 with a fund balance of $258,000 and collected $679,000 in revenues, with $122,000 for initial license fees, $523,000 for license renewals, and $34,000 was collected from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. For 21-22, the Bureau projects revenues of $612,000, with approximately $95,000 projected for the initial license fees and $502,000 for renewal fees, and $15,000 from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. You will notice the revenue is projected slightly higher in budget year and static in the out years. The next section is expenditures. The Bureau's 21-22 current year expenditures are projected based on FM12 at $578,000. I will point out that this is $1,000 lower than the expenditure projection report, and that's because this includes reimbursements to the Bureau. You will also notice that the budget year 22-23 expenditures have increased significantly, which is due to the costs associated with the BCP for AB 1194. The fund condition projects outgoing expenditures with a 3% growth factor increase per year. The fund condition shows the Bureau fully extending its appropriation ongoing. To the extent the Bureau does not fully extend its appropriation, any savings remain in the Bureau's fund, which will help the reserve balance. The Bureau notes future legislation or other events could require the Bureau to request additional resources through the annual budget process, which would increase cost pressures on the fund. The last section is the fund balance reserve. The fund balance reserve is the amount of funds remaining at the end of any given fiscal year. The Bureau's fund has a statutory fund balance limit of 24 months, but typically 3 to 6 months is considered sufficient. I would like to provide some additional information for the advisory committee on a structural imbalance. A typical structural imbalance occurs when projected revenues are less than anticipated expenditures. The Bureau's fund balance reserve is currently declining due to a structural imbalance. This is due to increased expenditures outweighing the revenue. The 22-23 structural imbalance is projected at approximately $294,000 and is anticipated to increase and accelerate in the 23-24 budget year, which will cause the fund to become insolvent in 2023-24. As previously noted, the Bureau's costs are projected to increase from costs associated with the new legislative mandates established by AB 1194. Which is drastically exacerbating the structural deficit. Because current law requires the fund to remain viable and solvent, and the Bureau Chief also has a fiduciary responsibility to ensure the Bureau's funds remain solvent, the Bureau is required to rectify these fundamental structural issues. What does this mean? It means that further action is required. The Bureau will need to take actions to reduce or eliminate the structural imbalance to remain solvent. The Bureau has 3 options to reduce the structural imbalance. 1, reduce spending. 2, increase revenues. Or 3, a combination of both 1 and 2. The Bureau further notes existing license fee types currently being assessed may be increased through regulations, which could eliminate the existing structural imbalance. Regulatory fee change proposals typically take 18 to 24 months to promulgate. Bureau staff will be working with the DCA Budget Office to identify possible actions to reduce or eliminate the structural imbalance to ensure the Bureau remains solvent and able to fully meet its licensing and enforcement mandates. Bureau staff will continue to update the advisory committee on its findings and potential strategies for addressing the structural imbalance as appropriate at future advisory committee meetings. And that is concludes my presentation, and I will be available for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any comment from the committee members?
Hello, this is Wendy Hatch. Of course, I have several questions. With regards to correcting the imbalance, has the Bureau actually started the process of the 8 to 24 months of increasing our fees?
It's Rebecca here. Let me chime in on that. It's a not super quick process, as you can imagine, for raising fees. We have just started that process by first securing the funding authority in this year's Budget Act, and now we're working with the department to determine what the new fee amounts should be. And as Harmony said, that fees increased via regulation, that process alone takes 12 to 18 months to complete. So we're just before that point. When we do start promulgating regulations, we'll notify the public via our interested parties list, email, when the regulation is filed with the Office of Administrative Law, and the public will have an opportunity to comment about the regulations during the public comment period. Separately, the Bureau is almost finished promulgating regulations to provide a retired and inactive status. And so it's very possible that the Bureau's current revenue levels will decrease if a significant number of licensees decide to retire or choose to move to inactive now that it's almost time for it to be an option to do so. So it makes it prudent to wait just a little bit to see how the revenues are impacted through that process so that Bureau and department staff can accurately calculate the correct amount for the fee increase.
And with another follow-up question, I'm excited to see you were successful in getting well, not really getting more revenue, but the expenses
the authority to spend.
Yeah. Can we increase our budget at all? And how long will that take to get, it seems like we have an excess in our treasury for the state, and couldn't we try to dip into this excess at all?
I would love that as an option. Unfortunately, the Bureau is funded wholly through fees, through licensing fees. We don't take any money in from the general fund. So unfortunately, this is the way that our budget is structured. I think it's typical, or not typical, as I understand it, that's how most, if not all, professional licensing entities work, or that's the structure of their budgets.
If we are solely funded by fees and renewal fees and new licenses, I'll tell you, the profession is going to really suffer because the newbies that are just applying cannot afford the cost of testing and paying for fingerprinting and then their first year upfront fees. And us people that have one foot on the way out, you're just giving us an incentive to put the other foot across the line. I just wish we could revamp the system.
I think that's a very, very valid concern, and it's a concern that I share. I'm unable to predict what the full impact of a fee increase would be, but I think what you stated is a very likely outcome. Regardless, the Bureau is required to implement new statutory mandates and to find the revenue to do that. It's an unpleasant situation that we're under at the moment.
This is Denise Nellison. I join with Wendy in my concern about this being our only limited way to get revenue. I can't believe that the the legislatures would want us to fail, because would want to have our important work disappear. I mean, there are people that need to have the help of this group, and you know, they could write a legislation to find a new revenue source for us somehow. If we had anybody we could have advocate for us. Any thoughts on that?
We are definitely having internal conversations with the department to see if there is a creative thinking outside of the box solution to our budgetary issues. It essentially boils down to being a small licensing pool. If we had a lot of licensees, this situation would probably be different, but we don't have a lot of licensees. And so I fully, I hear the concern, I share the concerns. And like I said, we're trying to be deliberate in crafting a fee proposal that that is accurate. That's the big thing that we're trying to do, and working within the constraints that we're under. But like I said, we're continuing to talk with the department and see if there are other solutions to our budgetary constraints.
And Chair Elder, I believe we're having audio issues. We did not hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. This is Childer. I would also like to make a comment. And I too have concerns about this, and I know that, you know, all of the bureaus and boards need to follow the AB 1194. And I also understand that the only revenue source that we have is through licensees. And Harmony, thank you for stating the three options that are available. My question is consider a fourth option, which is if are we able to request the budget office take a look at the fees that are associated with the AB 1194 and that increase, if they can have a tiered fee for different bureaus or boards based on their annual budgets, because the annual budgets are not the same for all bureaus. And so if the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau is among the smallest, then perhaps that's something that budget office can take into consideration, to have different tiers. And then based on those tiers, then have a reduced fee that the Bureau would be paying into for any cases that is related to AB 1194. And the reason why I'm suggesting this fourth option is I'm looking at the fee increase that, you know, would have to be passed through to licensees, and in an effort to increase the diversity and also help to support existing licensees, I think that not passing the full brunt of that price increase to licensees will help to prevent or mitigate barriers to entry into this profession, and as well as those who are, I think Wendy had mentioned it earlier, who are on the cusp of possibly retiring, but they're continuing. And so, so that's my thoughts for my recommendation for a fourth option to be considered.
This is Wendy Hatch one more time. I do have a question. With the 1194 fines and penalties that are put upon the fiduciary, I don't know if it's only for professional or if it's for private and professional, does that go directly to the courts, or is there any way it could be diverted to the Bureau? Or half and half?
I guess I don't quite, do you mean like if the court were to surcharge a licensee?
Well, in 1194, if we don't have care plans filed within, 60 days and every 12 months, we are going to be fined $1,000.
Oh, I think that's a separate legislation. 1194 was the conservatorship bill from last year that required, it was two pieces mostly that affected the Bureau. The first would be requiring that if the court finds that a licensee breached a fiduciary duty, that the Bureau would be required to implement sanctions. And then the second piece of it was that licensees have to share a fee schedule. That was 1194. I think you're alluding
I'm mixing it up with Senate Bill 602, sorry.
But we'll talk about 602 in the next, during the legislative update.
Okay, any other comments from committee members? I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from individuals attending the meeting via WebEx.
Certainly. And we are opening up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment on this budget report. And if you would like to make a comment, you may either raise your hand or look for the question mark icon typically in the lower right of your computer screen and type the word comment and click send. If you are a dial-in call-in user, you may click *3 to raise your hand. We do have one request for comment from someone logged into WebEx as Jerry Desmond. Jerry, I will send you a request to unmute your microphone and you will have 2 minutes to speak. And you're unmuted.
Chief, Chair, and Advisory Committee members, Jerry Desmond with the Professional Fiduciary Association of California, PFAC, and would like to add our voice to the comments and the concerns that are being raised by the Advisory Committee members, each of you. I know PFAC is quite concerned when we look at the structural imbalance and the potential for a very, very significant license fee increase. Agreeing that this would be, these kinds of increases will be a barrier to entry, and supporting the idea of getting into the detail on what are the specific requirements in law and whether those requirements can be structured or restructured in a way that continues to protect consumers, but also provides for efficiencies and a balance of the need for this profession. So we support the idea of investigating alternatives, whether it be, one, for instance, over the years, there's been a strategic plan element to increase the licensed population and maybe more drastic measures than just having folks come in as licensed professional fiduciaries as currently defined, but perhaps there's a way to adjust the laws on who is captured by the Licensure Act that provides these services. All options should be on the table, but we're very concerned that of the impact of this
30 seconds
of this increase would be. So appreciate the effort being made to get down into the details and look at each of the tasks. Thank you.
And I see no other requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you, moderator.
You're welcome.
And thank you to everyone who provided comments. And thank you, Harmony, for the report out. Item number 9 of the agenda. I would like to invite Daryl Holloway from the Department of Consumer Affairs Legislative Office to present the legislative update.
Hello, everyone. I'm Daryl Holloway from DCA. I'm a legislative analyst there, and I'm going to be providing you with the legislative update. The legislature is ending its 2-year cycle, and so a lot of the information in the agenda item has changed. There are some important dates that you guys should be aware of. August 25th was the last day to amend bills on the floor. August 31st was the last day for each house to pass its bills. And September 30th is the last day for the governor to sign or veto bills. So September 30th is the only still remaining day out there. A lot of the bills on this list have subsequently died and are not going to be moving forward. So I'm just going to go through the list and sort of explain each of the bills and which ones are still active and moving and which ones are not moving and are dead. Starting with AB 1662 Gibson Licensing Board's disqualification from licensure criminal conviction. This bill is dead and not moving forward. AB 1663 Mindshine Protective Proceedings. The status of this bill is it's ordered to engrossing and enrolling, which is a proofreading and organization process before the bill goes to the governor. So this bill is still alive and moving forward. This bill will revise how probate conservatorships are investigated, established, and terminated. It revises who may serve as a conservator for individuals with developmental disabilities and requires the Judicial Council to establish a conservatorship alternative program within each self-help center. It establishes voluntary supported decision-making as a way to help individuals with disabilities and requires the State Council on Developmental Disabilities to administer a statewide supported decision-making technical assistance program. This bill appropriates $10 million from the general fund to the Judicial Council and the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. The purpose of this $10 million is just to implement the conservatorship alternative program and the supported decision-making technical assistance program. On to AB 1733, Quirk State Bodies Open Meetings. This bill is also dead and not moving forward. AB 2616, Low Conservatorship and Guardianship. This bill is dead and not moving forward. SB 602, Layered Review of Conservatorship Care Plans. This bill is dead and not moving forward, but I will just give you a little information on what it was calling for before it died. Beginning in January 1, 2024, this bill requires a probate conservator to submit to the court at certain specific times set out in the bill, comprehensive care plans for the care of a conservatee and the management of their estate. SB 1005. I'm going to butcher this name, so I apologize in advance. Wachowski, I believe, conservatorship, sale of personal residence. This bill is signed by the governor and chaptered by the Secretary of State. It'll go into effect January of next year, I believe. This bill revises the provisions authorizing the sale of a conservatee's present or former personal residence or other real or personal property of the estate. This is done to specifically include the power to partition or bring an action to partition the personal residence or other real or personal property of the estate. This bill will also subject partition of the conservatee's present or formal personal residence to the same conditions as would be applicable to the sale of the residence. Getting towards the end here, SB 1024, Jones, replacement of an incapacitated or deceased professional fiduciary. This bill is also ordered to engrossing and enrolling, which is the organization and proofreading process that's done before it goes to the governor's office. So this bill is still alive and moving on to the governor. Beginning January 1, 2024, this bill authorizes a conservator, agent under power of attorney, representative of the estate, trustee of a trust, or interested person to petition for the appointment of a professional fiduciary practice administrator to act as a temporary professional fiduciary when a professional fiduciary either becomes incapacitated, dies, and a vacancy exists. This bill also expands the definition of professional fiduciary to make these provisions applicable to the professional fiduciary practice administrators. This little part at the end here clarifies that professional fiduciary practice administrators are professional fiduciaries regulated by the Bureau, the Professional Fiduciary Bureau. And the last one, SB 1365, Jones, Licensing Board's procedures. This bill is also dead and not moving forward. So that's the end of my presentation. If anybody has any questions, now would be a great time.
Hello, Mr. Holloway. This is Wendy Hatch. I have a couple of questions. When you say involved in or enrolling and involving before it goes to the governor, so has it already passed the Senate and the Assembly?
Correct.
So they can change the wording of a bill before it goes to the governor after the Assembly and the Senate has, can they change the wording at all, or?
I don't believe so. No, the language of the bill is like the debate and changes and amendments are already done. This is just a process of administrators in the government just proofreading and organizing the document before it's presented, like the official presentation to the governor for his signature.
And then going on to AB 1663, when it says potential conservators, does that mean private, professional, and family members all?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I had to jump back.
When it says the director of development services can appoint the subject to the preference. Well, so the director of development services can appoint a conservator, and if it is, does that mean for a private or like a family member or a professional? And does that only stay in the limited conservatorship area, or does it involve LPS conservatorships and limited and probate?
I don't really have a good answer for your question, but I can look into it and get back with you.
And then the second to the last paragraph, when it says the bill would authorize an adult with disabilities to request and have present one or more adults. What is the supporter's liability to facilitate and advocate for the disabled?
I do not know the answer to your question. I can look into it and get back with you again on that one.
And does the Judicial Council really know and understand that they're going to be forming all these policies and procedures? Or is this more of a study and funding of the $10 million to create these forms? And then who's going to monitor and review the forms?
Again, yeah, I don't have a good answer for your question.
I just throw them out so you can bring them back to the next meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
And then 1024, Okay, you did answer that, engrossing and involving.
Mhm.
And then in the last paragraph, the last sentence, or second to the last, the bill would personal representative trustees or the judicial council to create or revise any forms or rules necessary to implement this. So who decides again on the provisions and that the special judicial council to create these forms? Who monitors the judicial council that they're following what is put into the bill? And again, it's a question just for you to follow up on.
Okay.
Thank you, and a nice presentation. I do appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no problem. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Any
Any
other
other?
comments from committee members? I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
Thank you. And we've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If anyone has any comment on the legislative update, you may either click on the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, and in the text box type comment and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and that appears next to your name in the participant list or in the bottom menu, or if you are on a mobile device, behind the 3-dot other options, and calling users may press *3 to raise their hand. Give people a moment to locate that feature. And I see no request for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. And thank you, Wendy, for your questions. And thank you, Darrow, for the report. Item number 10 of the agenda. Rebecca, would you please present the Bureau updates?
Thank you. So starting with application, licensing, and enforcement statistics, they're all in the materials if you'd like to follow along with me. So this provides a snapshot of our licensing and enforcement statistics for fiscal year 21 to 22. So this would all be accurate information as of June 30th, 2022. At that time, we had issued, since the inception of the Bureau, 1,325 licenses total, had 836 active licensees as of May 31st. For applications, during that fiscal year, we received 85, and we issued 70 applications during that fiscal year. Processing times, they got better as the year went on, which is great. You can see from Q1 through to Q4, the numbers of days from receipt of an application to then providing approval to sit for an exam ranged from a high of 25 days down to 13 days by the end of the year, and 22 days from passing the exam to issuance of the license, down to 5 days. I credit that absolutely to Angela Quadra, our fabulous program analyst, for implementing some internal procedural efficiencies. And so I think that really made a difference, and I'm super pleased to be able to report that. For processing renewals, you can see we processed 774 renewals last year. Renewals are processed, or licenses expire at birth month, so those numbers aren't necessarily going to be even. But the processing timelines also decreased from a high of 27 days to a low of 8 days, although I guess it bumped up a little bit in Q4, but that's fine. And overall, it's shorter time frame. For statistics, and for our enforcement statistics, fiscal year 21 to 22, we received 119 complaints. We closed 137 complaints, and you can see how those spanned throughout. So you can see the aging of the cases there. We did close out some of the older cases. There's not too many of those left, so that is good. We are averaging 455 days on average to close, so that is still past the year mark. So we are doing our best to lower that, but that's the number that we're at right now. At the end of the fiscal year, we had 95 complaints pending. You can see that there's a couple of old ones there that we're still working on, but mostly they're newer. You can see the span there. We issued 3 citations last year, and we did not initiate any cases with the Attorney General's office. But I do anticipate that will change this fiscal year. Are there any questions from the committee members?
Do we have any comments from the committee members or questions?
Okay, so
This
moving
is
on.
Wendy piping in again. Good job, Bureau. Appreciate everything you're doing for us.
Thank you. All right, so moving on. Unfortunately, I have no outreach events to report this time. As always, if you think
could
there's
take
an
public
event that would
comment.
be- I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is legal. If we could take public comment,
Do it at
or
the
are
end?
we
I'm
waiting until
sorry.
the entire section is complete?
It might be easier to wait to the end.
Okay.
If that's okay, I'll keep going. So yeah, no outreach events. If there is an event you think would be good for Bureau staff to attend, please email the Bureau. For the newsletter, so outside of these advisory committee meetings, the newsletter is the best way for the Bureau to communicate with licensees and the public about what is happening at the Bureau and to convey important information that they should know. Our next newsletter is scheduled to go out in December, and staff is working on it now. If there's information that you think would be helpful to see in the newsletter, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Bureau with your suggestions. So moving on to the strategic plan. So as we've discussed in our last few meetings, the Bureau is heading into a new strategic planning session in partnership with the Department of Consumer Affairs. This new plan will cover 2023 to 2027 and provides an opportunity to gauge successes and to determine how to improve outcomes. I want to thank the advisory committee members for reviewing our current plan and collaborating with department staff on our upcoming strategic plan. You brought great ideas for advancing the Bureau's current goals and objectives, and you provided valuable feedback regarding the Bureau's strengths and weaknesses. I also appreciate the candid feedback we received from the members of the public who took the time to fill out the Bureau's online survey. This feedback, both good and bad, will help guide the Bureau in determining what areas can be improved upon and deciding what actions the Bureau can take to facilitate that. I anticipate that the strategic plan will wrap up in the late fall, and once it's ready, it will be made public and posted to the Bureau's website, and I'll keep you posted. Are there any questions about the strategic plan from advisory committee members? Okay, so moving on to sunset review. I think I've mentioned this before, but as a reminder, the Bureau, like other professional licensing entities, has a sunset date in its governing statutes. This date gives the legislature the opportunity to take an in-depth look at the Bureau in order to determine whether the sunset date should be extended. The Bureau last went through sunset review in 2018 and had its sunset extended by 4 years at that time. The Bureau had anticipated going through sunset review this year, but it was pushed forward to next year given the backlog of programs going through sunset review resulting from the pandemic. In the meantime, the legislature granted the Bureau a 1-year sunset extension last year in SB 607. So our new sunset date is January 1, 2024. So the Bureau prepares a very lengthy report detailing all the aspects of the Bureau, including, not limited to, its licensing and enforcement functions, its budget, its IT systems, regulations, legislation, etc. The report also provides the Bureau an opportunity to address any issues it sees as a hindrance to fulfilling its consumer protection mandate. The report is very data heavy. It's due to the legislature in January and will be made public at that time. The legislature, specifically the Senate and Assembly Business and Professions committees, will schedule a public hearing in the spring, March or April, I think, for the legislators to discuss the Bureau, and I will be there to testify on behalf of the Bureau. The committees will also prepare their own white paper, making recommendations for areas in which they believe that the Bureau can improve. After the hearing, one of the committees will author a bill to extend the Bureau's sunset and make any other statutory changes it deems necessary. Though the Bureau always has room to improve its operations, I anticipate that the legislature will extend the Bureau's sunset by another 4 years. That is the typical time frame for sunset extensions. So Bureau staff spent many hours drafting the report and is working with the department and the administration on refining it further before it goes to the legislature. And I promise I will continue to provide updates at each advisory committee meeting throughout the next year. Are there any questions about sunset review or that process by the advisory committee? Okay, moving on. Our last item here is the subject matter expert recruitment. So the Bureau is seeking subject matter experts to assist in complex enforcement cases. This is a separate function from the internal consultant position that was identified in the strategic plan. SMEs provide an impartial review of complex complaints received by the Bureau. Minimum qualifications include having a license in good standing for the last 5 years, no prior or pending disciplinary actions on their record, having at least 3 clients currently, and an in-depth knowledge of fiduciary work and best practices. And of course, good writing skills are very helpful too. The Bureau's SMEs are paid $75 an hour for reviewing cases and drafting a corresponding report, and $90 an hour for providing expert testimony and an administrative hearing. So if any licensees would like to apply, or if you know a licensee that might like to help the Bureau in this way, we encourage them to email our office at fiduciary@dca.ca.gov. So that's all I have for my update now. I don't know if there's any questions or anything you want me to cover a little more in-depthly. Please let me know.
Chief May, this is Wendy Hatch, of course, with a question. With regards to your subject matter expert, would the Bureau ever consider retaining and using retired fiduciaries, as they would not have any prejudice over the existing practicing fiduciary? I think if you're taking current practicing fiduciaries, there might be conflict issues with somebody reviewing the material when they're a colleague, and a retired fiduciary, I don't know, just an idea.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'll have to go back and review to see if there's any limitations on our SME program. The SMEs that we do have on hand now are current active licensees, obviously, because that's the only license type that we that we offer at the moment. But I think with the retired and inactive status fairly eminent at this point, I think that's something for us to review, and I appreciate that suggestion. Thank you.
Any other comments from committee members about the subject matter expert recruitment? This is Chi Elder. I've got a question about that. Is that opportunity posted on the website, and is there a deadline for any existing licensees to be able to submit their information?
There's no deadline. This is an ongoing process. Sometimes we have SMEs that they come and they go. It's not something that people do permanently, it seems, which is fine. So yeah, there's no deadline. And then I don't think it's on our website. I can double check. We always put something in the newsletter recruiting for this, but I think adding it to the website is an excellent idea. So I'll double check and we can add that pretty easily. Thank you.
Any other comments from committee members? Comments or questions on Bureau updates? Okay, I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from any individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
Thank you. We've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment on the Bureau updates. If anyone would like to make a comment, you can use the question mark icon typically in the lower right corner of your computer screen or behind the 3-dot other options to type the word comment in the Q&A text box and then click send. If you would like to raise your hand, you may do so by clicking on the hand icon. And if you are a calling user, you may raise your hand by clicking *3. Each person will be given 2 minutes to speak. I'll give people a moment to locate the features there. And I see no requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, Rebecca. Item number 11 of the agenda. Rebecca, would you please read the status of the Bureau's proposed rulemakings?
Thank you. The Bureau is currently in the process of promulgating 2 regulations. The first one, which we've touched upon a little bit already, will create a retired and inactive license status. It's nearing completion. The public 45-day comment period closed on December 27th, 2021, and an additional 15-day comment period closed on July 28th, 2022. And the Bureau anticipates filing a final statement of reasons within the next few days with the Office of Administrative Law. At that time, OAL will have 30 days to approve or disapprove the regulation. The second regulation here is to facilitate the implementation of AB 465, which requires a cultural competency component to pre-licensing and continuing education. It is currently within its public comment period, which closes on Tuesday, September 20th at 5 p.m. The proposed text for both regulations and information on how to provide comments can be found on the Bureau's website. As these 2 regulations move through the process, our office will send out a notice via our interested parties email list, and I will, of course, provide updates at our next meeting.
Any comments from the committee members? I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from individuals attending this meeting via WebEx.
Thank you. We've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment on the rulemaking update. If you'd like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon at the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, and in the text box, type the word comment and send. You may also raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, or if you are a call-in user, you may click *3 to raise your hand. Each commenter will be given 2 minutes. And I see no public comment requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you, moderator.
You're
And thank
welcome.
you, Rebecca. Item number 12 of the agenda. Angela, would you have, what items have you recorded from our meeting today for consideration to be included on future agendas?
Thank you, Chi. I have a couple of items that were presented by Wendy Hatch, and I apologize because I was having a hard time keeping up with the pen. So I will have to look those up to make sure that I got everything properly. But there were 3 different questions on the bill 1663. Was that Assembly Bill 1663? And then also on SB 1024. So for Daryl to present at our next meeting an answer to her questions. I know that the 1663, her questions were related to the director appointing and which areas of the conservatorship would be included in that those appointments. And then for 1024, the question was regarding the provisions and who monitors that the Judicial Council gets the proper provisions in those forms. If that's totally off base, please let me know. But again, I will listen probably several times to the tape to make sure I get it right for the next meeting. And then additionally, we have a standing item for the last meeting of each year where we do chair and vice chair elections. So that will also be added to the list. Is there anything that I missed or anything that anybody else would like to add?
Are there any other items the committee members would like to add? This is Chi Elder. I would like to add something for consideration. If we can hear a report back from the budget office in terms of some of the different options we had discussed, and then further discussion of alternative ways of increasing the budget that the Bureau has to work with. Whether it's the other options that we had discussed. Thank you.
Okay, Chi. So the options, if they're available at that time, you would want to hear back any options that we had considered for writing that structural imbalance, basically. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I would like to hear back from the budget office to see what they have been able to research, what other alternatives are available, besides just those 3 options that were provided by Harmony.
Okay.
And then if there is further discussion needed, then maybe we can add that to the agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Are there any other items staff would like to add?
Hi, this is Rebecca. I don't have anything to add, but to comment about Angela's, she had mentioned having elections at our December meeting. If any members are interested in serving as chair or vice chair and have any questions, they're certainly welcome and encouraged to email me. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments for any individual attending this meeting via WebEx.
Thank you. And we have opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to solicit suggestions for future agenda items. If you'd like to make a suggestion, you can click on the question mark icon in the bottom right of your computer screen or behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device, and type comment in the text box and click send. If you prefer, you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And if you are a call-in user, you may raise your hand by pushing *3. I'll give people a moment to locate that feature. And I see no requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you, moderator.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Angela. Item number 13 of the agenda. The following meeting dates have been scheduled for the remainder of the 2022 and 2023 years. If you have a conflict with any of these proposed dates, please contact Angela Quadra. And do we have any comments from the community members? I will now ask the moderator to call for public comments from individuals attending the meeting via WebEx.
Thank you. And we are opening up the Q&A feature of WebEx. If anyone has any comments on the dates proposed, you may look for the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your computer screen, type the word comment and click send, or raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, or a call-in user may press *3 to raise their hand. And I see no requests for public comment. Shall I close that Q&A?
Yes, thank you, moderator.
You're welcome.
And the meeting is adjourned at 11:22 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.